Uh-oh, I got blood on it.
Hey everybody, it's Don again from North of Detroit Outdoors. Thanks for joining me. Well, this video is a 1-year review of the Hawk Crawler deer cart. Now, I intended to make this video months ago, but since the making of my last video, I've had not one, but count them two shoulder surgeries. But, as many a wife has said to many a husband, better late than never. People have a lot to say about the Hawk Crawler deer cart. Some people absolutely love it. Some people point out things that they really don't like about it. The reviews just run the gamut. So what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is talk about my honest impressions about this deer cart after about a year of use. So I'm going to talk about the good things, things that you might want to be aware of, and also I'm going to talk about some of the modifications I made to the cart so that it works better for me and for how I intend to use it in the future. So if this interests you at all, stick with me right here on North of Detroit Outdoors. Let's get into it.
Stay on, baby.
For those of you who viewed my initial review of the cart, you'll remember that I purchased this cart because I was taking a hunting trip with 3 other guys to mid-Michigan. And we were hunting a vast expanse of land, thousands of acres of public land. And initially, when we go up to hunt, we don't just start hunting the very first day. Because we're looking for hunting spots for each individual person and what they like. But as we're doing that, we have to walk long distances. And we're carrying our backpacks and our tree stands and our ground blinds and our heaters and our guns and everything. So right away, this hawk became indispensable because instead of all of us having to carry all that gear, in addition to our full array of cold weather gear that we were wearing, we were able to load it onto this cart. And although it's called the Hawk Crawler, on this particular day it could have been called a pack mule because we loaded everything we had or as much as we could onto this cart. And it made that first day, which is typically very grueling, much easier. And the first thing I noticed about the cart was that it remained steady and sturdy throughout the entire day. No matter how much we loaded onto it, it never felt like it even got close to its maximum capacity. And as you may remember from my first video, one of my criteria, actually the first criteria, is that it had to be sturdy. It had to be solid. And I tell you what, this cart held up to whatever we put it through. There was no time in using this cart did I ever feel that we reached its capacity. And it just worked like a champ. So I was really happy about that. So thankfully for me, I wasn't just using this deer cart to haul gear. I actually did harvest a button buck while I was up there. I thought it was a doe. Yes, it was a lot smaller than I anticipated, but that seems to be par for the course for me. But putting this particular deer on this deer cart was a cinch. This cart handled it with such ease. It felt as if I could almost load 3 deer on there, and this deer cart wouldn't have even strained under the weight of that. Just as I anticipated, the location where I harvested the deer and the location where I parked my truck were pretty great distances. This deer cart was definitely worth the purchase because it made transporting that deer from one location to another much easier and really just a breeze for me to do and for the other guys who harvested deer that day too. Now, a lot of people will talk about this cart and the fact that the handle will fold even though you don't want it to. It'll fold over despite the fact that the knobs are tight. And many people have had to drill another hole in there to remove that pivot point. I don't doubt anyone else's experience, but again, to this point, I've not had that experience. Maybe it was because I didn't have loads that were heavy enough. I never had 2 deer on it yet, but I have had some pretty heavy loads and I didn't have that problem. So that's just some feedback for anyone who might be concerned about that particular issue. Didn't happen to me. Some of the reviews online talk about how the tires just don't hold up under heavy use, that they deflate prematurely, and some even talk about a manufacturer's defect in some of the tires, that they wear out prematurely. Now, I've not had that issue. When I initially added air to these tires when I first purchased the cart, that was the last time I've had to add air to it because they just stay as they're supposed to. I've not had any problems. And what I notice is when you have wheels and tires like this, it's best not to overinflate them because I've had problems with other tires on other pieces of equipment that do fail prematurely when you overinflate them. So I made sure not to do that. I'm not sure if that's addressing the issue everyone else had, but whatever their issues were, I didn't have the same issue. So some viewers have reached out to me wondering how the netting has held up over the past year. And I have to say, this netting has held up great. No problems with it whatsoever. There are no fraying, there are no tears in it. It's just as solid and just as firm as it was the day I bought it. Now, my cart I keep in the garage year round. I don't subject it to the elements, and I make sure that it's put away where it's not going to get punctured by anything else in my garage. So I take good care of it. I believe if I continue to use it like I have over the course of this past year, it's going to hold up a very, very long time. At least that's the hope. Now, one thing you may have to be aware of or deal with as a deer hunter is that it does accumulate blood. It doesn't just seep through as you might expect. But that's not a big deal. You can use a pressure washer or a garden hose and it cleans up very, very easily, as you can see here. So this cart performs exactly as I was hoping it would. Now, there are a few things that you might want to be aware of. The first is that it's a bulky cart. It weighs about 45 pounds, and although that's probably maybe a little bit heavier than your typical deer cart, and for good reason because it is sturdier, it is something that you want to be aware of. And also, because those wheels rotate, the bar, that long bar that holds each wheel on either side, when you pick it up, it will rotate. And one time it pinched my finger pretty bad. Now, it hasn't happened again because I make sure I pick it up in such a way that that won't happen. But for the new user, that may be something that you encounter, so be really careful. So there are a lot of great things about the Hawk Crawler deer cart, but I thought there might be a couple of things that I could do to make it work even better for me. So I modified it a little bit. The first thing I did is I added bow gun holders to the rear of the cart so that when I'm pulling deer out of the woods, I don't have to carry my gun or my bow on my back or on my backpack just to lighten my load a little bit. Is it absolutely necessary for bow holders when you can just lay it right on top of the deer? No, not really. But it's something I thought would look cool. And the second thing I did was I added a ball and hitch because I intend to use this cart with my e-bike. Now that's something I'm going to talk about in another video, but I'm hoping to take my e-bike into some areas that are really far back into the woods on public land where e-bikes are allowed. And I want to be able to pull my cart with me. And I think that's going to be a game changer. So I found a great solution of how to attach my cart to my bike using a coupling, a ball and hitch coupling. I think it's the best thing out there. And anything that I've seen on YouTube that allows me to have every degree of freedom so that I can move however I want to move on that bike, and that cart is going to stay right with me the entire time. So if you have any interest in that, let me know, and I can make another video on what I chose and how I attached it to my e-bike. So some viewers have wondered how I load the deer cart with the deer on it into the bed of my truck. And I tell you what, this has been a perennial issue for me. Every time I go hunting alone, when I harvest a deer, I have to deal with this issue of how I get it into the bed of my truck. And most times I have to call a buddy or I just have to struggle, and I mean struggle, to get it in the bed of my truck. But, uh, I kind of cheated a little bit in that a few months ago I was able to get a great deal on a used ATV. And that necessitated the purchase of some ramps so I could load the ATV in the bed of my truck. But I chose very strategically when I chose ramps. I made sure that I didn't choose ramps with large spaces in between each rung on the ramp because I think that would make it much more difficult to get a deer cart into the bed of my truck. Rather, I chose one with a flat surface so it would be much easier for things like the deer cart and the generator that I have if I ever needed to move it, just to roll it very easily and quickly into my truck. And as you can see here, it works great. So I'm excited about that. It doesn't provide a solution for you if you're not looking to purchase ramps, but perhaps you can buy some wooden 2x6s or maybe 2x8s or even some strong plywood to serve the same purpose. So that's my real world review of the Hawk Crawler deer cart, and it is a fabulous cart. I do recommend it to you if you're in the market for a new cart too. If there's anything that I didn't answer in this particular video, or if you have questions about anything, please leave it in the comments and I'll get back with you that way. But it was a pleasure having you again here with me on North of Detroit Outdoors, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.